and then I am going to hand it over to our host for today. This is Global Knowledge's CEO, Todd Johnstone.
Hi, everyone. Thanks a lot, Courtney. Appreciate it. I want to welcome everyone today and thank you for joining us. We have had an overwhelming response to this webinar, and the attendance is well above our expectations. And I look forward to the speakers and the interaction today, and want to thank the entire audience for your tremendous support, both of this webinar and of Global Knowledge overall. The coronavirus has changed many aspects of life for millions of people globally, including where and how they work. With the increase in remote jobs, it is important for both individuals and companies to be aware of the added cybersecurity risks. Today, our distinguished speakers will share real-world examples and tips on how we all can be better prepared. In this webinar, you will learn about working from home and an overview of the risks, what businesses are seeing with real-world examples, what new threats to expect in the future, and how to prepare for these threats. I would like now to introduce our presenters, who we are honored to have join us today, and in having them as ongoing close partners with Global Knowledge. Our first presenter is Paula Januszkiewicz. Paula is the CEO and founder of CQURE and CQURE Academy. She is also an Enterprise Security MVP, Honorable Microsoft Regional Director for Central and Eastern Europe, and a world-class cybersecurity expert, consulting customers all around the globe. Paula is also an on-demand top speaker at many international conferences, including TechEd in North America, the Middle East, and Europe, along with RSA China, the Cybercrime Forum, and many others. And she also writes frequent articles on Windows security. We are very fortunate to partner with Paula at Global Knowledge and work with her on a number of occasions, including speaking at events and running workshops. She always impresses with her mix of usable information, deep knowledge, and brilliant communication skills. The training courses that Paula conducts cover security, Windows operating system topics, and virtualization, and she is passionate about sharing her knowledge with others. She conducts many IT security audits and penetration tests in her everyday role, and want to say welcome to Paula and thanks a lot for continuing to partner with us. Our second presenter is Artur Wojtkowski. Artur is an expert trainer and presenter at CQURE Academy, where he trains some of the world's foremost cybersecurity experts. He has wide professional experience gained in many industries, mainly in telecommunications, banking, and the insurance sectors. He specialized in infrastructure, web, mobile applications, penetration testing, and social engineering, and is also a member of the Poland chapter of ISC² and the holder of many critical technology and high-level cybersecurity certificates. Welcome, Artur. Our third speaker will be Brad Puckett. Brad is the Vice President of Product Subscriptions at Global Knowledge, developing our Polaris subscription service. Previously, Brad built out our cybersecurity portfolio and is an in-demand media commentator in North America on cybersecurity career paths. Brad has been with us for 10 years, playing critical roles, having previously been a security expert at Nortel Networks. I'm extremely excited about today's webinar and our distinguished panel, and will now turn it over to Paula.
Thank you so much, Todd. I couldn't really better introduce myself. Thank you for this, and absolutely a pleasure to be able to present on the webinar. And thank you so much for Global Knowledge for arranging this, and to you all, of course, spending your time on listening about things that are related with cybersecurity. So a couple of things. First of all, as you can see within our team, we've got a great cooperation with Global Knowledge for so many years, and we deliver courses for Global Knowledge. And eventually within our team, we've got over 40 custom classes that we wrote in-house. That is because within our team, so you've got actually 2 team members on the technical side that are on this webinar, and 1 team member as well from the project management and the training arrangement side. So happy, of course, to answer all of the questions, but eventually within our team, we spent approximately 70% of time to perform projects. And if it's about myself, for the past 15 years, I've been performing penetration tests, but I got also access to the source code of Windows And that is something that Microsoft shared legally with me in order to be able to do a bit of a better deep dive into the Windows security. Plus, of course, there is like this 1% that I don't have access to, and that is something that we still have to do the research about, and that's what we're going to be talking about today, because we're going to be discussing today, for example, things like data protection API, but this one in a second. So that's the background. Now, long story short, if it's about our team as well and our experience, we are not only performing penetration tests, but also we perform the different architecture designs, because our team is working on a good side and also on a bad side. And long story short, we've redesigned different, for example, identity systems for the biggest banks in the world and so on. So that's basically our case. We review the cloud configuration, we perform incident response. So that's the background, and it will be great to share with you different thoughts that are related with what is happening right now, especially from the perspective of remote work, to see the whole background of the of cybersecurity, about what's happening right now in the world. So what I will do right now, I will share my screen, and eventually let's continue, because we've got today lots of different interesting demonstrations prepared for you, and eventually together with Arthur, we would like to present to you not only how hackers are able to get inside through different means of communication, what's going to be an email, USB stick and so on, but also we would like to show you what are the threats that are currently out there within the infrastructure. So the concept of the shadow IT, which is a very up-to-date concept right now, related with the projects that are conducted out of compliance. Anyway, all about that. Very excited, and let's start. So we've got, of course, COVID situation, yes, and that's something that you guys obviously know. But eventually, at the same time, various companies are actually struggling with searching for solutions that could assure remote work and at the same time the good cybersecurity approach. And many large tech employers such as Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and so on, they are already prepared for the needs of a remote workforce. But for others, that kind of a wild-scale adoption of remote working comes with some real challenges. And in the scramble to assure the safety of others, it's important that businesses do not overlook the need to ensure cybersecurity as well. And eventually, we've got different organizations that are engaged with statistics for the cybersecurity and for remote work. And let me share with you a bunch of those to give us a context about how code can actually execute while we are having a remote work. So for example, we've got over here the International Workplace Group that have released a report, very interesting one, by the way, one of the first ones, that was saying that 50% of employees globally are now working outside of the main office for at least 2.5 days per week. And that's pretty much what we've got in our office. I'm right now in our office. The office is pretty much empty because the rest of the team is sitting at home right now. And that is the situation that we are dealing with. Now, whenever we look at the cybersecurity from that perspective, that also shows us a really good direction that we've got in order to design a secure remote work system. And there are various organizations, for example, like this one, which is called CISA. And CISA in general, that is an organization that's the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, and that's actually a part of the Department of Homeland Security Cyber Agency. And they have issued an alert that is encouraging organizations to take a good approach to cybersecurity. And they have also cited the possibility of increased vulnerabilities, different attacks and phishing attempts. And we could be thinking that, well, obviously, that's really obvious. In the current times when we are sitting at home, we've got just another reason to send spam to everybody. And that's kind of like the natural flow of the situation that we got right now. But on the other hand, it's really good to see that kind of comments, that kind of alerts, because eventually that is good for cybersecurity from the, for example, budget perspective, because that yet it's another organization, important one, that says that cybersecurity is important and things going to happen. That's why we need to have more budget for securing ourselves, saying it right now pretty generically. So eventually, another research piece that was put out by Checkpoint, it also showed that cyber criminals are using the coronavirus pandemic to spread spam activity through both email campaigns and malicious domains. And that's basically what we are also observing, that if it's about statistics, for example, from February 2020 to March 2020, so just within the month, the amount of attacks increased by 569%, while when we take into consideration ransomware sample, we've got an increase for over 72%. That also means that, for example, if the mean of ransomware transportation would be email, then we can just expect more of that coming, and they might be more or less original, but we know what's the direction for us to secure ourselves. And also when we take into consideration nowadays personal devices, that is also one of the biggest cybersecurity risks and threats that we are eventually dealing with right now. And whenever we take into consideration that kind of a device, which could be, for example, processing company's information, but it's still a personal device, question would be that, for example, when we lose it, are we informing a company about that fact? Because why, right? It's our personal device. But unfortunately, I will show you later some statistics. They say that lots of people are using personal devices for the work-related functions. So another question would be, is actually our data secure? And to drop you at the very beginning, another interesting statistic, there is actually an organization that's called Identity Theft Resource Center, so ITRC, and they said that since 2005, there have been over 10,000 serious breaches that were publicly reported related with data in the world. So that's a lot, because that kind of a rapid shift to the remote work without well-established protocols will likely create even more opportunity for cyber criminals. And that's basically what we are dealing with right now. Now, from the personal device perspective, whether it's smartphone or laptop, there are serious problems posed by using a personal technology in a work setting involving sensitive information, because we can see that the device can be stolen, lost. There might be someone else using our device, like kids and other members of family, employees, for example. They might like save documents to their desktops on sent document drafts, for example, to their personal email because they're going to be in travel, or they're going to be, for example, moving somewhere. So there is this bigger flexibility that we have right now while we are discussing data security. And they may also not have up-to-date antivirus software, or they may use outdated personal password protection. So that kind of things. Devices basically might be broken into, might be also a printed document that they're going to be playing with that's going to like fall into wrong hands and so on. So when we perform activities in the office, these conditions are a little bit more in favor for cybersecurity. So eventually we have to educate our personnel on best practices and just to make sure that they have access to the latest updates, patches, protection, and so on. But obviously that's not that easy, and that's what this webinar is about. So let's summarize that first section. What are the requirements for the remote work? Well, simply, we have to share data with other people. That's for sure. How are we going to do it? That's obviously a technology that we have to choose over here, but we need to do it. On the other hand, we could easily guess that there is a big risk related with that, because I can send a document to the wrong person, and eventually can the other person open the document. We've got, for example, solutions like Azure Information Protection, that whenever I send it to, for example, John, or that's actually the other John, then the other John will still not be able to open the document because the document is going to be encrypted. So are we ready for that kind of challenges? And also we've got a case of VPNs. Yeah, so eventually we have to assure the remote access to our employees. And that needs to be 24/7. That needs to be up to date. What is cool about that is that it would be great if we could introduce on the top of that multi-factor authentication, because if, for example, I'm connecting using VPN from the personal device, what's the security of the personal device? And here comes Data Protection API, my totally favorite subject related with getting access to all of the secrets that are stored in the user's computer. That's going to happen today, so stay tuned. But eventually, we've got as well things like business apps that might be only accessible from the inside of the organization, and at the same time, concept of shadow IT. And what's the shadow IT? Because I promise that we're going to be back to it, and now it's a good moment. So the shadow IT, these are the projects that are conducted out of compliance with official company policies and really without oversight from the company's corporate IT function. So eventually, saying this in the more humanic language, we've got a developers or IT pro guys that set up, for example, some web server because they needed it, and eventually what happens is that they've forgotten, or whatever the reason is, it's there, it's not up to date. And for example, if home user is connecting using VPN to the organization, that web server out there, it's still there. And then if the hacker is sitting on the personal device of the user, then we are able to hop to the certain infrastructure. We call it VPN pivoting, by the way. There's an attack like that. And then eventually scan, check what are the possibilities to get access to that particular infrastructure or resource and so on. So these are the requirements that we are talking about. Now, concerns, just as well to summarize, we've got VPNs, so the shadow IT we already mentioned, VPNs that might not be up to date, that's also the case. Things like phishing emails that are increased right now. And just to give you the example, which is quite funny or not funny, literally basically last week and the week before, we had a couple of incidents. By the way, today I also had an email about an incident at our customer site, very big organization that is producing medicines, for example, and the other one is on the government level, and the other one is the factory level. So the government level had a data leak and privilege access because it appears that hackers are or were sitting on their domain controller since November 2019. Just imagine. And we are participating in the event to evaluate what happened. So too much of a privilege access, things being misconfigured, and so on. And now there's a bigger chance of those. And for the factory, for example, customer, there was a case of a user getting an email, clicking on the link, running ransomware, bring it on. Yeah, so their data got encrypted, and that's the factory that has units literally around the world. So now we are dealing with that. I'm actually quite curious what we're going to end up with, but they didn't have the most up-to-date backup and all that stuff. So that's the situation as you know it, right? So eventually we've got the need of multi-factor authentication, and that is because, for example, when we are performing the activities for the customer, one of the things that we start is and this was a part of my project not a really long time ago, we start checking users from the external perspective. So a bit of an OS interface, but maybe a little bit deeper. And one of the things that I did for the oil and gas company, which is approximately 6,000 users, I took the whole user list and I did password spraying. So simply I used the company name 2020. So let's say Global Knowledge 2020. And that was basically their password. So statistically, out of that 6,000 approximately users, 29 had a password of company name 2020. Now, when we take that into consideration, it's a completely different phishing, right? Because you are logged in as Anna right now, and then you're going to send to your pals information about, hey, look at this document. We've got probably a bit of limitations within our company. Some people are going to get fired. So verify if you're going to open up that Excel spreadsheet, if your position is still safe. Yeah, so people are concerned about that because now we have a really good reason to be worried. And that kind of a reason could be added on the top of the phishing. And that's what's happening right now. We're going to show you this one. Now, at the end, of course, the need of making things online immediately, that's also asking for trouble. And this is basically the perspective that we are dealing with. Okay, guys, some statistics, and let's get into the techie part. We've got remote work by numbers. Yeah, so I was mentioning that some of the people, lots of people, are using a personal device for work-related functions. And that's actually, according to ESET, 81%. That's a lot. Yes, because it means that somehow we are connected to corporate network. Well, at the same time, when we look at the last statistic, so 46%, these guys who are actually using personal device for work, they also let someone else use it. Now, we might not have here bad intentions, but we may just install an app to edit our picture to look better in a coronavirus times. So that's something that eventually could, for example, request on the, let's say, Android platform, even for more permissions, and eventually listen to what we are doing on the phone. Now, at the same time, when we are wondering how to design a good cybersecurity strategy and where to apply it, we've got here percentages that are related with where do we actually, or what kind of device we actually use for work that is a personal device. And you see that 56 and 51% respectively is a desktop and laptop. That means that malware is going to more hit this because there's a more success ratio. And on the other hand, for IT pros, in order to apply appropriate security, that is also a direction, right? Because it means that the code's going to execute on these platforms. So we need to implement, for example, whitelisting technologies that could here eventually prevent that kind of situations. And at the end, we've got also here devices that store company information, and again, desktop, laptop. So if it's about information theft, password theft, and so on, identity theft, you can expect things happening more on these devices versus mobile devices, which are also possible, absolutely. But we've got here a bit of a risk assessment as well. So if it's about the last statistic, we've got 65%, and that's actually my favorite number here, that says that IT pros, that's the amount of IT pros, they say that they don't have the necessary tools in place to manage a non-company issued mobile devices. So basically, we've got also over 80% people using personal device for work, and let's combine it with this situation where 65% of IT pros say that they are not really managing it, while at the same time, 27%, they don't feel confident. Well, I guess, I mean, what about the rest? Do they really feel confident? It's hard to feel confident in cybersecurity, but eventually they have admitted it. So it means that they must be feeling really not confident about the current situation. So summaries are as following. We have to assume the worst. And when we say we have to assume the worst, we have to imagine the situation where our infrastructure will be eventually attacked. And what does it mean? It means that, for example, through the personal device, hacker will manage to get access to the inside of the infrastructure. Assume that there are elements, components of the shadow IT. Yeah, you might have done pen tests a month ago, but there are people working, yes, and they might have actually set up something, yeah, and you might not really know that because the next pen test is in the next 5 months. So that's what we are referring to. Now, assume that your data is going to leak. So the question is, are we ready for that? Do we have some information protection solutions that could help us out? And another part is that when we assume that our device is going to be stolen, our question is, of course, are we ready from that perspective? Okay, guys, so that was a little bit of an introduction from the remote work perspective to give you the background and some current experiences that we are dealing with right now. And now it's time to get into some attacks and eventually scenarios that's going to show us a different perspective on what and how basically things might be attacked. So first attack that I would like to show you, and that's going to be my part, it will be related with the website that might be actually delivered to the user through email. So user might, for example, get a link, and let me show you this one. That technically looks like this. And you guys already should see it on the screen, yeah? So this is a typical thing to actually do within the emails and malicious domains, because we were mentioning malicious domains as a part of the increasing statistic over here. It'll be great to see what do we actually mean by this. Yeah, so anything related with changing the letters a bit. So when we look at the domain, it looks like real one. So please have a look. Over here, we've got a domain that's called CQURE Academy. Yep, as you see, and that's the WordPress logon window. And then we've got as well another one that looks similar, which is what's best over here. It is also secured. So all these employees training saying, oh, please have a look at the padlock, whether it's good or not. Of course, it makes sense, But in the current times, we've got a possibility to spoof identity a little bit, or eventually just buy simply a certificate for the domain CQURE. And please have a look, what's the difference over here? CQURE Academy. And that is, let me enlarge it, the difference, yeah, CQURE Academy. But eventually there is a padlock. So it is actually a secure website. So we look at the padlock and we're like, okay, that's good. Yeah, but the website is different. So we actually bought the certificate for that. So if you're wondering how we are preparing this demo, so that's the setup. So CQURE Academy, eventually, that's something that when we are redirected over here, we can try to log on. Yeah, so we can actually log on in 2 websites. And for this one, we've got a CQ demo. And let's just use the password as someone would use for the regular logon. Yeah. And then eventually here we've got successfully logged in to a malicious page stealing your credentials. Yes, exactly. This one I will show you in a second. And the difference, of course, here it's no difference when you log on. Yeah, so it's going to be CQ demo. Let's do that. So this is a very easy demo at the very beginning, presenting us that these could be like 2 different pages, but they look literally the same, including certificate, which is a trend that we are looking at right now. Okay, so once we got that, you might be wondering whether we manage actually to get credentials. So that will be the CQURE Academy. So let's have a look. So we've got CQURE Academy, like you got it in here. And within the CQURE Academy, we can get into the admin. And then basically we've got log.txt. And within log.txt, we are able to see that we've got certain type of credentials recorded. Yeah, so this is basically what I've been typing. So long story short, that is basically the way of how we are able to grab the password. Now, interesting fact over here would be related with the fact that, for example, when in the current times we're working from cafes, from home network, that if we're not cybersecurity specialists, we can really assure security of that network, right? So question is there a hacker sitting in the network? Well, I know how my network works, but someone who is maybe working in some other department that is not security related will just have a regular Wi-Fi setup, yes, and then use business applications. So have a look. Yeah, I would like to show you that concept here. So here, what we're gonna do first is let's have a look at ping for a demo to CQURE Academy.com, like this. Okay, and we have a resolution to the certain IP address. That's really the only thing we care about. Of course, we could use NSLOOKUP for this one too. It doesn't really matter. And then we've got another CQURE Academy where we have also resolution to a different IP address. So this is basically how it works, yeah? Now, what we're gonna do, we will simulate over here that we are actually connecting, and let me do that we are actually connecting to the different switch. So we are simulating the access point in Starbucks, yes, or any other cafe place. That's my point over here. And eventually, who is sitting on that access point? And that will be our question. So I have over here the switch that we're gonna change. So that's this demo DNS switch. Fantastic, yeah. And we got this. So let me actually close the browser and open it once again so that we got it all refreshed. And eventually we will try to log on into CQURE Academy and CQURE Academy. So now we've got a demo CQUREacademy.com and then /admin. Yeah, so that will be the portal. And then another one, same thing, demo CQURE Academy. In this case, that will be Academy. There's like lots of different names, so and so on. So these are the 2 websites, yeah? So we already learned in the previous demonstration that they were different, right? So now please have a look at this. Here, we're gonna do CQ demo and then password, enter. And that's the Academy, so the malicious one. So that's what we are expecting. And over here, we're gonna do CQ demo and then we're gonna do also password. So that's the theoretically good one. But now it looks bad. So what's the problem over here? Well, the problem over here that because we are connected to the access point, yeah, that we do not own, we could have that website served to us on the fly with the whole malicious setup, and it looks exactly the same. And the domain, it's the same because the domain is resolved by our malicious access point, not by the authoritative DNS server related to the domain. And that's like a second level of the attack. So how do we recognize that? Well, in this case, yes, indeed, we do not have a certificate for this one. Yes, or at least it won't be trusted because it's not issued by the official authority. Yeah, so this is basically the concept. And if in here we're gonna ping CQUREacademy.com, yeah, then we've got a certain IP address. Okay, great. And if you do the same story for CQURE Academy, then it actually returns us the same address. So you see basically what's the difference here that is related with browsing malicious domains. So it's even hard for a security professional to spot that. Yeah. Okay, so we got this. So the next part that we got, it will be related with the malicious USB stick. Because the question is, whenever, for example, we've got emails, okay, we know the phishing rules, we might be able to recognize it and so on. But what about actually a situation when we manage to find a device and then basically we are wondering what that device is? In general, when we find a device, it's not a good idea to stick it in. Isn't it like that, Arthur? We cannot hear you yet.
All right, so yes, thank you, Paula. Okay, so as you said, we can use tools that are really familiar to people. However, they are really dangerous for the security infrastructure for your company. For example, we have the USB stick that looks like that. However, it's actually not a real USB stick, but it's device that allows you to simulate the keystrokes that are typed by a user. Yes, so someone might say, okay, so what do I need that for? Yes, so in this case, we can use this USB stick, for example, to leave it somewhere like in a coffee shop, or we can send it by mail, by regular mail to our victim. So that the victim would put it into the user's workstation. And after that, the device might type some scripts that will be executed. And after that, the malicious code will be executed on a victim's workstation. Okay, so just let me show you how it works. So on the left, we have the attacker's machine, and on the right, we have the victim's machine. Now let's try to put this device into the USB port. Yeah, so I am plugging it in. Just before, I will just have to start the listener. So I will use a netcat with the L parameter to start the listener in verbose mode, and I will start it on port 443. And after plugging in the device, a connection will be established back to the attacker. Yeah? So the attacker will get full access to the victim's workstation. So let's do that. So I'm plugging in the device. Yeah, and what happens here is that we have injected a script here that waits for a couple of seconds. And after a couple of seconds, it simulates the Windows plus R keys, and after that it's running a PowerShell script that executes a malicious code that connects back to us. Yes, so now we are on a user's workstation. Yes, so we have access to the files on this workstation, and we can do a bunch more malicious activities after gaining access like that. What's also interesting, so this device has also a Wi-Fi module, so we can use a Wi-Fi connection in order to remotely type something with this device on a victim's machine. And what is also interesting is that there is a USB cable version of that. Yes, so and this device actually implemented here in this USB cable. So it's so-called Ninja USB, and it also has a Bluetooth module, so you can control it with your mobile device as a hacker. Yeah, so that's pretty interesting. So what are the scenarios that we used during our assessments? So for one of the security tests, social engineering tests that we performed for one of our users, we have prepared such devices. Yes, so it connected back to us, and we created a letter that in which we said that there was an incident because your personal data has been breached. And to check the details about this incident, you have to go to a website, which is gdpralert.eu. So this is the website. And we also, in this mail, we also sent this device in order to log in with it. Yeah, so we said that this is a device that is needed to log in to our portal that we prepared. Yeah, so after the user typed the password or login, yeah, it was asked to insert the device. Yes, so the users were actually plugging in the device in order to log into this portal. Yes, so this is one of the cases that you can use with this device. Okay, so back to you, Paula.
Thank you so much. Okay, absolutely. So we've got, we can see that we've got a possibility to control a certain workstation by plugging in the USB stick. That could also happen through email, and that's basically what Arthur's going to show you later on. But first, I could also see that you guys were requesting for the attack for the VPN pivoting. So you requested, and we can do it. So let's do it. And VPN pivoting will be really nicely filling up and completing what Arthur was mentioning, because if the hacker manages to get access to the machine of the certain user, then from that moment we are able to jump through that workstation or from that workstation to the further areas of the infrastructure. So what we're going to do now, let's dig into the VPN pivoting, where we're going to learn what potentially could happen later, and in general how through that particular workstation that is already controlled by the hacker, we are able to move forward and then eventually digging into the scenario of the VPN pivoting. So that will be the setup. So long story short, what we got over here, it's the situation of the home and public network or public network and some company servers. And we've got as well the console over here, where we've got a regular client's machine, and at the same time we've got Kali Linux. And the next part will be simply to dig into the analysis, what we can do with or from the regular user workstation. So we're gonna technically do SRV01 raccoons PL. So we're gonna do the recognition. Yep, and then we're gonna verify in the meantime if we are able at that stage to, for example, query that particular IP address with the server. Yeah? So that's the setup. Now, the next part, of course, within the attack, we will actually connect through the VPN. So that is the setup. And the another part, of course, after we do it, we will be able at that stage to actually try to access the raccoons PL, and of course we are able to do it because we are connected through the VPN. So that's the regular VPN connection as we see it. Okay, great. So we can also see that SRV raccoons PL is already responding. Yeah, and eventually everything is good in here. So user is connected to the local resources, and we are able to eventually access raccoons PL and so on. So no problem about that. And the next part is to look at the same thing from the hacker's perspective. So that's the hacker's machine, and we can see that internal network it's not reachable. And at the same time, we're going to run nmap, yeah, and that is in order to basically verify if we have access to the resources that are inside the network. IP config, you can see that we've got an IP address that is completely out of the scope, and eventually we don't have access to that current infrastructure. Yeah? So that's the situation. Now, the next stage over here, will be related with, of course, performing the attack. So let's assume right now over here that attacker, it's already on the user's computer. So here we're going to simulate this attack, and let me do it. So we are using the Metasploit over here in order to basically listen for the incoming connections from the client's machine. Yeah, and that's basically what is happening right now. So this could happen through USB or through some phishing activities and so on. So plenty of options. And eventually, the next stage over here would be to listen for the incoming connections, take over the connection that we got on the or from the hacker perspective, and then basically be able to control the workstation there like that remotely. So this is just to show you, of course, that's happening. Yes, so that's what Arthur was showing you. But eventually over here we've got Meterpreter session 1 opened. Yeah, and we're going to be interacting with this session, and within this session we're going to add a certain route. Yeah, so that will be the situation. Yeah, so we've got here the session open. We've got a certain IP address basically, and eventually right now we have a full control over the client's workstation. Yeah. Okay, so this is the clear situation right now, and again, as I mentioned, could happen through vulnerability or anything like USB stick or email and so on. So that could be potentially an option too. Okay, so the next part would be, of course, to configure the different routes so that whenever we're going to be communicating through the user's workstation, that particular route will be working for us, because we're going to be configuring over here proxy that we're going to go through that will actually serve to the hacker as a original attacked machine. So hacker itself will communicate technically through the target's machine, and that's going to be through the proxy that we're going to set up locally within this particular demonstration. So that's basically what we're going to do. So let's have a look. Sessions over here, we've got, as you see, we can do -I to interact with the session 1, and the next part we can do shell, and at that stage, if we're going to do things like who am I and so on, you can see that we are a certain user that was attacked over here. We can do host name, we can do IP config and so on. So we can see that we are actually right now on that particular workstation. So that's the setup. Now the next stage is that we can see over here that that's this IP address that is connected through the VPN. So that's what we care about. Okay, so our job is going to be to configure routing so that we could actually go through this particular workstation to the company's organizations, to the company's network. Yeah, so that's going to be the setup. So here, let's just run the PowerShell. Small typo, here we go. And then we've got basically here, just to show you, when we are on the user workstation, and that's the data protection API, also able to list the saved through the VPN or to the VPN usernames and passwords. Yeah, so that is something that we are also able to list, but we don't want to connect to the organization's network directly. We want to actually do it by leveraging over here the situation that we're going to be actually jumping through the workstation. Yeah, so that's the momentum, and that's why we're going to over here use root add for the certain session, for that session that we have here opened, in order to be able to have that serving as like a proxy server. Yeah, so that's why in here for that particular sessions, yeah, so the session 1, we're gonna configure actually the proxy over here. Yeah, so that's why we're gonna do the use auxiliary server, and then we're gonna do socks, and then we will specify for A, here we go, and then the next stage will be show options to verify what kind of options technically we got. So we got a SRV port 1080, okay, fair enough. And we will need to configure, of course, in here root add, and then we will configure that 10 root because that's the IP address that is used within the VPN. So it's going to be 10.10.10.0, 255.255.255.0, and then we are adding it on the session ID 1. Yeah, so that's basically, that's why this comes over here. Yeah. So this is where this one is from. Okay, and the next part is going to be related with verifying if we are actually already in the network. Yes, so we have configured the server, we've got a proxy server over here, and then the next part, it's quite straightforward. Yes, so here we can verify what kind of possibilities we've got from the network access perspective. We can do nmap, same command, but this time we can see that the host is up, and we can do proxy chains. Here we go, and that was something that will allow us to do detailed scan in the infrastructure that we are in right now. And as you can see, within the proxy chains, we are able to analyze here that we have, for example, port 8080 opened, and that is actually the port that was used before by the web server that was inside the organization. So right now, as an attacker, and that's still from the attacker's machine, we are able to query that particular server. So if you do proxy chains, for example, Firefox, yeah, then basically we can query the server and verify what kind of options do we have. And here we go. As you can see, we've got a situation where we are querying the port 8080. And this is basically what proves the point that eventually we were able to use the target's machine to jump through it, not directly connect to it, to the network. And that's really cool because you could monitor that there is some additional connection happening that you don't know. But here, no, everything is actually from the trusted source. So this is the VPN pivoting attack. Well, long story short, let's get into the email scenario, because VPN pivoting is one thing, USB is another thing. We've been talking about phishing activities. Now let's see the full scenario that is related by or related with the user clicking on the link, doing something with the email and so on, and then eventually getting access to, and that is actually an attack related with the custom script of Arthur himself.
Yeah, thank you, Paula. Okay, so in this scenario, we will be sharing information about victim's workstation through getting access to it by executing a malicious attachment to the email, or by executing a file that was actually downloaded from the internet. All right, so the scenario will be pretty similar to the previous one. So, however, in this case, we will get a phishing email from our hacker, and in this case, the attacker is saying to us that there are some new COVID statistics, and we can download a spreadsheet with those statistics, and those statistics might be updated online with a macro. Okay, so as you can see, there is a link to the malicious file. What's also interesting here, we are bypassing the safe links Outlook protection by restricting access to the file on a firewall. So these protection mechanisms are not allowed to inspect this file. So we will download this file as a victim. And as we can see, there is some file to be opened. Meanwhile, we will start the same listener as previously on the attacker's machine. So we will start a listener on port 443. What's interesting here is that we choose port 443 because it's the port that is used by HTTPS. So in many companies and in many environments on airports and so on, this port is opened. So there is a huge chance that we will be able to actually get a connection from our victim on this port. Yeah, so this is why we use that. Okay, so now the attacker is listening, and now we will use another way how the reverse shell will be established from the victim. Okay, so our file is opened, and as we can see, there is some warning, yeah, that there is a protected view. However, from our experience, the users do not pay too much attention to the warnings, yeah. So let's assume that our victim will actually enable editing, and moreover, the victim will enable the macros, yeah. And what's also interesting here is in this file, we have created an image that looks exactly like a spreadsheet. However, it's an image, yeah? So wherever I click, a macro will be run, yeah? So in order to make the probability of a successful attack higher, we've done a trick like that. Okay, so let's see first what's in a macro. Yeah, so we will check the macro first. And what's here, there is this PowerShell script. I think that this is one of the shortest reverse shell PowerShell scripts in the world. It was prepared by us. It's about 200 characters long. And as you can see, there is this information that this script will be connecting back to the attacker on port 443. Okay, so let's try to run it. Yeah, and as you could see, we got a connection back to our attacker. And now let's see what could our attacker do with our victim. Yes, so let's check who are we one more time. Yes, so we are the user on the victim machine. So we can have access to the files. Yeah, so for example, we can see the content of this file. So we can, for example, download this file or whatever. We have also prepared our post-exploit library. So in this case, we are downloading the library from our server. And we are actually downloading it is, directly to the memory, so no files are created. And this is done because we want to bypass the antivirus checks. Yeah, so to minimize the of our as an attacker's risks that we will be identified by the antivirus. All right, so the script is loaded, and what could we do with this script? Okay, so for example, we can get a screenshot from our machine. Yes, so we are creating a screenshot, and the screenshot is uploaded to the attacker's machine. Yeah, so let's see it. Yeah, and there it is. Yeah, so we can see anything our victim is doing on the victim's desktop. Yeah, and so that's pretty interesting. What else could we do? And so we can capture anything the user writes, yeah, because when we are on a machine, we have access to camera, we have access to microphone, we have access to the keyboard of the user. Yes, so let's try to capture the strings that are typed by our user. Yes, so we will use start key recording command for that. And for about a couple of seconds, all the keystrokes will be recorded. So for example, if our user tries to log in on a machine, and then we will be capturing all the keys that were entered by our victim. And after that, all the keystrokes will be sent back to the attacker. And so in a couple of seconds, we will get, we will get the result of the script. Yeah, so like that, we were able to capture the user's password to Office 365. Yeah, so so this is why it's a good idea to implement a two-factor authentication on your services, because if the user's password is compromised, then the attacker has to have access to the second factor, for example, a mobile device, yeah, because to get a code from the SMS. All right, so, but what else could the attacker do? So let's use the lasagna tool. in order to extract some credentials. So here we will be downloading a file to the temporary directory. And after that, we will execute the following command in order to extract credentials. Yes, so because when we look into our victim's workstation, we can see that our victim is using a bunch of tools. Yeah, so for example, the victim is using the WinSCP. So the WinSCP is a tool that is used to, for example, to connect through the SSH to your servers. Yeah, so as we can see, there are some passwords saved here. There are some passwords probably saved in a web browser and in some other places in a system. And the Lasagna tool is a tool that allows you to extract credentials from many different tools. So it has a lot of plugins that are used. And so it takes a while, however. After extracting all these credentials, the attacker may actually try to attack our corporate infrastructure. Yeah, so for example, if the attacker is able to extract the WinSCP passwords, yeah, like the one I showed you, then the attacker will be able to attack this server with that. Yeah, so we have to wait a couple of seconds more, I guess. Yeah, so what else could we do? Because yeah, so it took about 86 seconds. Yeah, so that's quite a lot. So what could we extract from our victim's machine? So we were able to extract the password from WinSCP. Yeah. So that's really dangerous, yeah, for our company. We were also able to extract the passwords that were saved in the browser, yeah. And it's also, what's interesting here is that it's a low privilege user. So we were able to extract all this information not as a local administrator but a regular user. Yeah, so that's really good to know. Okay, so yeah, so I think as you could see, so these are the dangerous dangers of using corporate email on a workstation that is used for a private purposes as well. Yeah, because we don't have a way to manage the workstations of the users that are working from home from their personal computers. Okay, so back to you, Paula.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for this. So having in mind right now a situation where a hacker managed to take over certain laptop, as Arthur was showing you, the next question would be what else attacker can extract? And eventually, how does data protection API aspect that we are covering here is affected? So let me show you this one from the perspective of the user that is a domain user that is under attack. So we're gonna take whatever Arthur was mentioning right now, and we're gonna take it a little bit further. And I would like to as well end up with a demonstration that is completely massive, because we're gonna learn how eventually attacker could take over any privacy data, any secrets of every single user within the whole domain. And I'm really serious about this because this is also our research that we've been doing for 2 years, and absolutely not bragging about it, but we are probably the first and the only team that fully reverse engineered data protection APIs of the cryptographic platform in Windows. And eventually that is really related with that. So anyway, you should see my screen right now. And I'm going to go to the CQ tools. And over here, we've got a tool that is actually a publicly available tool. It's not our tool, called Compass. And that particular Compass, as you see, allows us to display passwords. So that's what Arthur was showing, that everything basically that you run on your own account has access to any other app secrets. That's also interesting news, by the way, because if you have, for example, passwords stored in Outlook, yeah, if you open up 7-Zip, which one day might be malicious or something, then 7-Zip has by default access to the password that other application is using. That's why using KeePass is such a great idea over here. But anyway, let's prove that. Yeah, so I'll be quick on this one. So here we've got LinkedIn and the user stored password for LinkedIn. Good, but we are not really commenting on this one right now, but for sure, see Chrome Pass, not being Chrome, can also access that password. Yeah, so the next part will be, let's figure out where that secret is stored, or shall we? So we're going to use for that purpose actually the tools. So that we've got DP API folder and we've got our DP API tools, and that's the CQ DP API blob searcher. To be absolutely sincere with you, that's one of my favorite tools because when you run it and you in your laptop, for example, it can scan your whole drive and search where your applications are potentially sharing secrets, storing secrets. Sometimes it might be not even with our knowledge. Yeah, so that's the point. Let's have a look. I'm gonna shorten the link a little bit over here, so it's not through the whole C drive, but it's gonna be only the Google folder. Okay, so let's do it. So directory, in this case, users, Freddy Krueger, app data, local, Google, Chrome. And then let's do a recursive search, and let's do output to see CQ tools. And then we will stream everything into dpapi.txt bang. That is basically taking approximately 10-15 seconds for the whole search. And if you go dpapi.txt, in this text file, you guys see that we've got over here the list of secrets that are processed by Google. Not very cool to see that Google underneath is actually using SHA-1, just saying. Yeah, okay, in that context, let's say it's all right, but that's basically what we are seeing here. But what we are learning as well is that the master key, so the key that protects our secret, for Google, it's B55. It starts with B55. Let's remember this for the moment because I'm going to be referring to this guy in a moment. So what we're going to do, Data Protection API, it's relying on two factors for the domain users. It's this or that. So two separate factors. One factor, it's our passwords hash. So for the domain users, it's going to be MD4. I'm saying for the domain users because for the local users, it's actually SHA-1, which is quite interesting. And that is to avoid the offline access, obviously, where we store some database that's MD4s. Yeah. So for the domain users, we don't store hashes in the computers. That's why we've got MD4. And or in this case, logically, we have also the another way to protect our secrets, and that's something that we call private key from the domain. You might be hearing it like for the first time because it is a very difficult stuff that we have discovered, and sometimes we talk about it and so on. We've got some articles about it, but the DP API, it's a very shady area. Anyway, let's dig in and everything's going to be super clear. So what we're going to do? Well, because we learned that secret of the user, it's dependent on our password, what I'm going to do in here, I will actually restart this machine from the ISO image. And the reason why I'm going to do it offline, we can do it both online and offline, by the way. But the reason why I'm going to demonstrate it offline, it's because it's more linear from the demo perspective. Okay, it's going to be more smooth. So what we're going to do, we're going to actually overwrite cache logon data. Yeah, and cache logon data, sometimes people call it cache credentials. These are not credentials. Cache logon data, let me use this opportunity to actually explain that. That is actually a result of the certain function. We call cache logon data MSDCC2, and we store it within the registry. And that function that is actually used to store cache logon data in the registry, it's called PBKDF2. And check it out, it's technically consistent of username, DCC1, I'm going to explain it in a second. Then we've got it, HMAC SHA-1. So let's say it's like a random value. And then we've got 10,240 iterations on the 16 blocks. Yeah, these are the components of the PBKDF2 function used, by the way, by Azure, Amazon, and so on, different cloud services. Now, DCC1, for your reference, that's cache credentials. These are not credentials, yeah, are actually the following. So there is an MD4 on the top of the username, joined with the MD4 on the top of the user's password. Yeah, so it's like a double hashing over here, yeah? And that value is only just a part of PBKDF2. That's basically what cache logon data is. So you can see that it's not a credential. We cannot log on with it. We can only compare with it. So when we're going to change that in a registry, we will be able to log in the operating system with the password that we predefine. So that's really cool. Let's see. Advanced options, command prompt. We are in the ISO right now. And what I'm going to do, a quick font enlargement in here. What I'm going to do, let me go to the tools, and then we're going to do CQ tools. Yeah, and we've got a Kiwi Secure Edition, and that's the Mimikatz. It is actually our Secure Edition because it's our module plus our Secure Edition Mimikatz. It's not recognized by antivirus solution. So that's really cool because of the custom reflection technique that we got for the kind of tools. Nobody wants to be recognized eventually by antivirus. So here we go. LSA dump, cache, and we are overwriting cache logon data. So we're going to do D Windows system 32. Unfortunately, I cannot type, so I have to type the whole thing. System 32 config, and then system. And here the same thing, Windows system 32 config, and then security / kiwi for the indication that we would like to override cache logon data. So bring it on. All of the users that credential related data, not credentials, but credential related data was cached so that we can log on when the domain is not available. We have overwritten their password by default with the password Mimikatz. Yeah. So this is basically the setup. Yeah. So we've got a okay, and that's it. And then we have disconnected this machine from the network in order to be able to log in with the cached but changed logon data. Okay, so this time user's password won't be password p@ssw0rd, but we're going to log on with the password Mimikatz, okay, so that you guys are going to see it. Now, using the opportunity, while we are rebooting over here the machine, let's go and extract the private key that is related with the public key that is used to encrypt users' information. Yeah, so that's going to be the setup. Now that's exciting because eventually, as I was mentioning, that's something that within our team we have discovered, and it is actually quite an easy way of doing it. So let me show you how we can actually do it within the machine. So this is basically the domain controller over here, and the way how we are able to extract the super important private key that is working within the organization. It's like this. It's super simple. CQL secrets dumper, and then we're going to do file, and then we're going to specify exported PFX, enter. So it looks like in our team we are doing nothing because that tool also took approximately 2 years for the research. It consists of over 40 other tools, but it's just bang, that's it. And you got access to the private key. Let's see what that is about, okay? So we're going to export it PFX. Let's import it. We don't have to do it, but I want to show you how that key or how that certificate that each of you has in the domain looks like. So here we've got secure password. Okay, next, finish. Import was successful. Let's see, start mgr.msc. And in the personal certificates, we've got that dodgy certificate, which is not available. And here it's issued to nobody and issued by nobody. It's a gold certificate, and each of you essentially has this in the domain. Now, this is expired already, and why it's expired? Because I set up my domain in 2012. If you did it approximately same time or like earlier and so on, you cannot renew that certificate. So pretty much any question that you ask over here, answer will be no. Can I renew it? No. Can I delete it? No. Does it get changed when I, for example, upgrade the functional level of domain? No. All the things that just stays. So when it leaks, there's a big problem. Yeah, and for some of the customers, they have actually decided to wipe the whole domain literally on that level and set it up from the scratch because the privacy has been violated. But anyway, let's see. So please have a look on the client right now. Let's log on with the password that user normally uses for the domain logon. That's password. Doesn't work. Okay, because we have overwritten cache logon data. Mimikatz, this one, enter, works. So we are logging on with the cache logon data that has been changed. Now my goal for you is to see that if we log on with the changed password, we are or not able to see the password from the Chrome. Okay, so let's figure it out. If you go to the CQ tools, once again for the Chrome pass, we do that, and that's going to take a small moment. We're searching and trying to decrypt master keys. So this B55, we are trying to decrypt with our current passwords hash so that I can get my password for Chrome. But that doesn't work, of course, because we logged on with the password Mimikatz. So see, it's empty. But we have that strange key from the domain that is the same, by the way, for every single user. So if you have 100,000 people working in your organization, then there is only one key needed to decrypt all of the secrets of the user. Let's check it out. So what we're going to do now, we will go to the place where that master key is stored. So B55. So it's going to be in App Data, Microsoft, Protect, SID, and then let's go for B55. That's this guy here. So what I will need to do, Shift right click, copy as path. I will need to decrypt it with the private key from the domain, and I will need to encrypt it back with my current passwords hash. So you will see how powerful that private key eventually is. So what we're going to do, here we go, CD, CQ tools, DP API. That operation is very simple. First of all, I will need to generate my current passwords hash, that's Mimikatz. Okay, I got it. And then second thing, I will need to do CQ master key AD. So that's our kind of like flagship tool, I would say. It's of course free to download from the blog. And then basically we specify what we would like to decrypt, this master key, how we would like to decrypt it with that particular PFX from the domain, and how we would like to encrypt it. So new hash with this hash that we have over here. Perfect, yeah. Okay, great, and we got it, enter. So we are decrypting and encrypting back that master key. Yeah, so this is the full operation here. And after we do that, basically, we will be able to replace that master key eventually. And the next stage will be to verify if we are actually able to get access to these credentials. I pressed enter because I thought that that was just hanging or something. Anyway, we got this, yeah? So long story short, let's see what we got. This is literally the last step. We've got this AD modified over here. So we take this particular master key over here, we rename it to good. We take this AD modified, we replace it, rename, perfect. Okay, enter, enter. Now it has this empty icon here. So the last step is to give it an attribute. Have a look to that file of a system and hidden. Okay, so that's the setup. Okay, enter, perfect. And in here, please have a look, the password was empty. Bang, we are able to see the password of the user. So what does this represent? So that represents us two things. Following up on what Arthur was mentioning, when a hacker manages to get access to users' computer and is able to fire up various code like PowerShell and so on, of course, whitelisting here could help here as well, but in most cases, that's not implemented. Then we are, as a hacker, able to extract all of the user's secrets because of the DP API. Now, when we've got a situation when we are able to escalate further, for example, because of the shadow IT scenario or through VPN pivoting that I was showing and so on, if someone manages to get access to the domain, currently within the current times, that will be one of, for example, my goals, if I will be on the bad side, to steal that kind of certificate, to decrypt password secrets that are maintained within the user profiles, and then you've got access to Facebook, LinkedIn's, Outlook, some VPN data and so on of all the other users. So the mitigation for that, it's clearly whitelisting, and mitigation for that, it's also the review of the privilege that you've got on the level of the domain, which is called replicating directory changes and replicating directory changes all, these two. And also at the same time, code execution prevention on the user's computers. So that is basically the set of demonstration that we got today for you. So we've been talking about malicious domains, we've been talking about malicious USB sticks, we've been playing with the email scenario, We've been also playing with the VPN pivoting. And at the end, of course, we've been playing with the very important scenario, which is data protection API, which sums up all, and it in general sums up places that potentially hacker has access to or could have access to. And when he or she does, then what kind of implications we are actually dealing with. So that is basically the full concept here. Now, long story short, whenever we are, of course, mentioning all these scenarios, then you guys might be wondering about where you can find the tools and so on. And the tools, of course, you are able to find on our blog, so CQUREacademy.com/blog, and this is where we share the tools. And I believe it's now time as well for the questions and answers, which we've been also handling during the conversation. But if there is something particular, we're going to be still with you for this one. Yeah. So if you guys have any questions, do not hesitate to ask them.
This is great. Thank you guys so much for the presentation. So we do have 2 questions that are currently in our Q&A panel. And so the first one is around MD4. Can you discuss if MD4 is still used and the applications and what your thoughts are there?
Absolutely, I'm happy to answer this question. So depends really on where, yeah, because MD4, it's not really bad, anything bad over here, yeah. So MD4, we've got MD5, the same story like with some other protocols that are in use still within the organization, like NTLM version 2. That's actually quite shocking that we are still using this one, right? But anyway, or SMB not being signed, or NetBIOS, yeah. So there are plenty of things that we could mention here. So MD4, it's definitely they're used for some database and also for ntds.did. This is where we use hashes of that kind. But interestingly, when we use, for example, the ways of how we are encrypting that some database, because some database being hashes, so MD4, it's also encrypted. So when you take the pure SAM database and you open it in Notepad, it is not in a clear text. So it is actually encrypted by using indirectly the value that we call a boot key. And boot key is stored in a system hive. So when you extract the boot key, it's not really working directly on some database, but you also have to take a couple of other values from the registry, put them in a certain function multiple times, and surprisingly, one of the things that's happening over there, on the top of the result of that function, you calculate MD5 to generate a key that will decrypt database which contains MD4s. So in Windows, MD4 and MD5 are used for various reasons, but for hashes, MD4s are currently out there. So nothing really that bad if it's about MD4. Yeah.
Great, thank you. So we have another question here, and I may be pronouncing these acronyms wrong, so bear with me here, but DMARC and DANE are relatively new in the email security protocols and techniques. I know this questioner has, some difficulty with fast implementation, so they're not convinced if they should invest their limited resources and time in these subjects in the near future. What's your opinion?
Yeah, so it's really hard to say and answer this question like this, yes, because these are also the email security protocols that could be used within the organization, but it really depends on the current architecture. So we will need to know pretty much more details, yeah, about how they could fit in the architecture, because they might be recommended because of some other solution that you guys might be using, or not, yeah. So that context is something that we will need to know over here.
That's wonderful. And Paula, your company does consult on those pieces, correct? When they provide the additional information?
We do that, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to jump down to a question here where if a user logs in with personal computer in work group, they are using application with MSI web, then also threat company server by the user's machine.
Let me check on this one.
It is at the bottom here. I'm just double checking.
Oh yeah, I see.
Conversation around it.
Okay, so if I understand the question correctly, so basically, if we've got a certain personal computer connecting to the organization, and then there is a certain application that is deployed to that workstation, and that application is accessing the company's data. Well, okay, that could be a threat. Yeah, for sure, but because that needs to be investigated. How we are able to get access to that MSI app and how this MSI app communicates with the company server. Does it establish actually some kind of a VPN connection? If so, maybe credentials are encrypted in a sense within the configuration file of that app and so on. So that's to be investigated, yes, because within the MSI, you can put in many different configuration files, options, and so on. And if someone takes this file, for example, and decompiles it, then will we be able to see some secret data? Maybe, yeah. So there is potentially a threat, but there might be none if everything obviously is configured well.
Great, thank you. So we have another question here around what AV and firewalls do you recommend? They do list out quite a few different operating systems here, but could you just state your opinion on what of those you recommend and where to find additional resources for it?
It's hard for us to say really which one we recommend, you know, because and I can see that Arthur is also smiling here, because there are like, it depends really on what and in which context you use them in a certain organization. So what kind of management functionalities do they provide? Because, you know, we would say that for all of those, we would recommend machine learning, intelligent threat detection, antivirus. Yeah, so whatever that will be. And unfortunately, there aren't many of those. So I would like to avoid, of course, giving you some vendors here. Of course, at the same time, being very objective, but there aren't many. So if you're looking for something in particular, I would definitely go into this direction. So machine learning, intelligent threat detection, and so on. So, and the reason why it's like this is because that's the trend right now to spot things that are allowing you to build a context of the attack. So correlate the different activities and so on. So that will be the direction, and quite a generic answer as well to go to.
Great, thank you. I know a lot of this, especially when it comes to cybersecurity, can be really personalized to the organization, right? You know, depending, like you're saying, about the architecture, how it's set up, where their users are, what's going on in it. So there is a question here that's more high level, and we've been touching on it throughout the webinar, but what risks have really gone up now that so many people are working from home?
Well, first of all, question is whether we are using the personal device or not. So that's the case. Second thing is related with the security of our devices. Is someone else using them as well? So in general, what is the security of our laptops? Let's say that we took from work home, and that security pretty much affects everything else. So if we set up, run an app, we don't need to be an admin for that, right? So it could be a standalone app as well. We could open up the macro and so on. We could be, for example, listened to. So as Arthur was showing also in the email scenario, we were able to do the key logging and log pretty much every activity, anything that the user types in, yeah? So that could be potentially the threat. We could listen to the camera, so firing up the code that we don't know, and the company's or the enterprise's response, it might be delayed, for example, because of the updates that are not rolled out maybe on a regular basis and so on. So also antivirus definitions that might not be rolled out on a regular basis. So everything really depends on how organization is managing the current cybersecurity state, but it's important to make sure that everything is maintained as it was before, to put things on time, and to control the security of the workstations as it used to be without any delays. It shouldn't really impact the security for the fact that we are connecting through VPN. It's just a way to connect, and that's how we should think about it. It's a new way, but at the same time, it became a normal way.
That is great. I know it's like you've been mentioning and highlighting, it's just the complexities of working from home now. And I know even myself, sometimes I value, like you were saying, the convenience over security. And so we really have to be on top of our game here. We do have another question about, should VPN split tunnels be allowed?
Let's see, because I don't see. Should
It is,
VPN? Mm-hmm.
That one's in the chat here. So just a high level question about if VPN split tunnels. There's not additional information on.
Oh, okay, I got it. Arthur, do you want to handle this one? Because I don't see it
Yeah,
actually. Let
sure,
me
of
check.
course. Yeah,
Okay. Oh, yeah.
oh yeah, so the split tune link is a problem because at the same time you are connecting, for example, to your corporate network and your internal like home network. So if there is a let's say back channel to which the attacker may connect back to it. Yeah, so it's better to put through all your network traffic through the VPN. Yeah, so that's the best solution.
That is wonderful, thank you. For the final, there's 3 questions here, so I'm going to ask Paul and Arthur to answer those in the Q&A chat panel as we move through the final piece of the presentation here. Paula, can you move the window in front of the presentation real quick?
Oh yeah, sure. Bring it on.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Apologies about that, guys. Awesome. So we're just going to show some information now about CQURE and just our Cybersecurity Month at Global Knowledge.
Hello, everybody. This is Brad Puckett. Happy to be speaking to you today. Let me share my screen. Having a little trouble here, sorry. So at Global Knowledge is the leading provider of IT education for IT pros and professionals and business professionals globally. We have many valued relationships, and we've built a very large and wide portfolio across many applications. And one of the things that we've built is a pretty robust cybersecurity practice. And that practice itself is, very end-to-end, and it operates in a very specific way. So Cybersecurity Month for us every year is a really wonderful opportunity for us to go out and sort of highlight our cybersecurity practice and do the things that raise both cybersecurity awareness, but also sort of raises the opportunity to have cybersecurity conversations and engage people in cybersecurity scenarios like the ones we've done today. CQURE, for example, is a very valued partner and contributor to Global Knowledge. And if you had the opportunity to hear Paula speak at a conference or anywhere else, you understand the absolute extraordinary depth and value that she brings. And a lot of times we don't get to highlight those things throughout the year. So having an opportunity to do that for Cybersecurity Month is a good thing every year. We have a lot of resources available for you. We have computer backgrounds and posters that'll raise awareness that you can put up. You can use on your computer for if you're in your office or have a location that people might visit. Those posters are very good for awareness as well. There's lots of articles available. We have many white papers. We have a very wide variety and large number of contributing SMEs that write white papers and informational articles for us. We have articles available posted today on multi-factor authentication, cryptography, a lot of the things that go into a cybersecurity defense and cybersecurity awareness across the workforce. So it's important for us to continue to move in the motion every October and make every other month a supporting month for Cybersecurity Awareness Month. As Paula highlighted, the application of all the things we do in our business and all of our employees and all of our connected systems, networks, and users, all of them are potentially perilous to us and our organizations. So it's really important that we use Cybersecurity Month as a kickoff to go through each month of the year with those things in mind in that type of awareness. Robin has put up a link in the chat, and that link is to the list of webinars available that you could attend for free, and many of them cybersecurity oriented, and most of them there to help educate you in the way that this presentation educated us today. The cybersecurity portfolio at Global Knowledge is very deep in its texture. It's very robust in its possibilities. We go from the full stack of foundational knowledge all the way up through very detailed, high-end boutique type knowledge. CQURE has a very, as you saw today, they have a very saturated, comprehensive practice of cybersecurity that delivers at a very high level. And those things were extraordinary to me to watch today, and they always are when we hear both Artur and Paula speak. But we also have foundational knowledge courses. We have courses at mid-career level. We have a place of entry for everyone to come in and start a learning journey in a learning path and work their way up through to the top of that pyramid where that sort of niche, highly technical information like Paula demonstrated today is. So through partners like Paula and through original content, we're able to do that. And one of the things that we're moving towards now is the ability to have unlimited subscriptions. And that includes all of the type of cloud, networking, cybersecurity, many different types of courses, virtualization, machine learning, artificial intelligence. We work those all into unlimited subscriptions in a product that we call Polaris. Global Knowledge Polaris is a unlimited training subscription at 3 tiers. There's a foundational tier of on-demand training. There is a mid-level tier of on-demand training that's specific to technologies, vendors, and more advanced application of knowledge. And then there is a top-level tier that is an immersive training that includes all of the type of training that we do in our classroom. So it's virtual instructor-led training. That top tier, known as Discovery, is an unlimited subscription that you can, after purchasing the subscription, enroll in as many Global Knowledge classes as you want. There's over 300 titles in there for one price of $2,999. Our cybersecurity portfolio is included in all 3 tiers. There's foundational cybersecurity training in the bottom tier, which is called Launch. That Launch tier at $99 includes 2 different cybersecurity titles that are foundational and allows for training across the 8 domains that are commonly known in cybersecurity practice. The middle tier includes cloud and cyber training in an on-demand format at $399. Lots of more advanced, more applied topic level training for that tier. And then of course the top tier, which we call Discovery, is instructor-led training, fully immersive, certification-driven in a lot of cases, and it provides training for you in the traditional leader-led format. So Polaris is our subscription product, and it provides a lot of value to our customers. We're able to drive that value through the partnerships with companies like CQURE and others that really are enablers to your IT education and allow you to move through and gain the knowledge it takes to do the kind of defense that we have today. So as it relates to the conversation we've had today, there's a common need to understand that end users are cybersecurity professionals as much as your IT department. Everyone has a role in cybersecurity. Everyone has a role in understanding proper cyber hygiene and proper cyber education. And so we continue to try to teach that at both the IT professional level and also to proliferate the cybersecurity awareness that you need to push out to and to understand at your end users.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Brad. I want to thank Todd for hosting this event and kicking us off from a Cybersecurity Month perspective. Your support is always appreciated. Paula, Artur, you did a wonderful job presenting, and Brad, thank you for giving the overview of our Cybersecurity Month as well as our new subscription offering. We appreciate everyone hanging on. We're a few minutes over, so appreciate that. And there will be a recording of this session. I know we're getting a lot of feedback that is just very informational for you guys, so it will be emailed to you, and it will also be available on our website. Everybody have a great day.
Thanks, Courtney. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.